Shabbat Shalom and Gemar Tov. Emerging from the smoke of the battlefield, the world's top international recording artist had just finished playing a concert to three, yes, just three, Israeli soldiers awaiting a helicopter lift. As the psalm says, Shir lamalot esa einai el haharim me'ayin yavo ezri. A song of ascents. I lift up my eyes to the mountains, but from where will my help come? Just days after the Yom Kippur War started, 51 years ago now, in October 1973, and remember, a year ago, October 7th, was the 50th anniversary of the Yom Kippur War. But 51 years ago, Leonard Cohen, the legendary Jewish-Canadian singer, hopped on a plane just days after the war started. As he describes it in his journal, I'm going to Israel. We travelers had come looking for the war, and the airplane filled us. The other travelers on his plane volunteered for tasks in the nearest kibbutzim they could find. But this soulful singer had his own mission. His goal was to help raise the morale of weary Israeli soldiers with his music, as Cohen went by jeep from base to base, dressed in fatigues and a helmet. At that time, Israel was facing its most serious threat to its existence. During the Yom Kippur War, they were caught by surprise. Israel seemed momentarily on the brink of extinction. Cohen ended up spending more than a month on or near the front lines, even crossing into Egypt, performing 6 to 8 mini concerts a day, playing for groups of 2 soldiers or hundreds. There were no groupies. There was no paparazzi. They were just sitting on the sand and singing, eating rations and sleeping in sleeping bags alongside the IDF soldiers. Cohen even helped evacuate the wounded. One soldier recalls, quote, I came in desperate for food, for fuel, for something to drink, and suddenly I heard the voice of God, Leonard Cohen. And then I knew we would be okay. While in the Sinai, he penned his hit song, Lover, 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 which premiered at one of those mini concerts. Cohen sings aloud this verse, quote, I went down to the desert to help my brothers fight. And the soldiers would sing along with him. I went down to the desert to help my brothers. One even said, those words became engraved in my heart. Cohen was energized by the feelings of solidarity, his ability to support the Israeli troops. And that's the same feeling we've had this past year. He was so inspired that he composed his own version of our Yom Kippur prayer, Unatan Tokef, Who by Fire, which has this refrain, and who shall I say is calling? The psalm that I began with, the same psalm we've been saying in this synagogue since October 7th, Psalm 121, asks that same question, who shall I say is calling? Esa einai el haharim me'ayin yavo ezri. I look up to the mountains. From where will my help come? The Bible answers, Ezri me'im Adonai oseh shamayim va'aretz. My help comes from the maker of heaven and earth. God, who is called Shomer Yisrael, the eternal protector and guardian of Israel, who never sleeps and never slumbers, the shield that protects us. Halavai, let it only be. Leonard Cohen asks in his version of Who by Fire, who shall I say is calling? Which means, who are the helpers? And the answer is in his other song, From My Brothers, the Jewish People. All of us. We have all stepped up this year. All of us, Am Yisrael, the Jewish people, we have stepped up. And since October 7th, a full year ago, Israel's top musicians and stars have followed Leonard Cohen's example, crisscrossing Israel to lift the spirits of Israel's citizens and soldiers, singing for the displaced Israelis to soldiers on bases, in hospitals, in battlefields, at funerals and weddings, and even at brisses. In the words of Leonard Cohen, to go down to the desert to help my brothers. We did that. We did that with our visits to Israel. We did that with our contributions and our donations. We did that with our prayers. We did that with the kalaniot, the red clay flowers that we've made and are in our garden. We've done that with our posting online. We've done that with our calls and texts to Israel. We've done that by speaking up and standing up. Israel music legend David Broza himself, since October 7th, has performed 150 concerts. Again, some of those are concerts for 2 people, and some are for hundreds, in hotel lobbies, in bomb shelters, in the lawns of kibbutzim, to give some kind of relief and new positive energy. This is what he said, quote, "This is what I know how to do. If I was a doctor, I'd go to a hospital. If I was a sandwich maker, I'd make sandwiches. But I'm 68, I'm not a soldier. I give what I know how to give." And so have we. At every show, Broza performs his first hit, Yihi Tov, which means things will get better. Originally written at the onset of the peace process with Egypt between Begin and Sadat in the late 70s, with the hope and the prayer, Yihi Tov, let it be that things will get better. Joining Broza this past year, Israel's top musicians, from Omer Adam to Shlomo Artzi to Eurovision star Eden Golan and her song October Rain. They've been performing nonstop around the country and also abroad to the global Jewish community. Am Yisrael, the Jewish people, not just Eretz Yisrael in Israel, but Am Yisrael, all around. Though they each sing their songs, they all have one message: Am Yisrael Chai, the Jewish people live and will endure. Am Yisrael Chai, because the Jewish people are resilient and we are survivors. You would think that Am Yisrael Chai is an ancient slogan that was uttered by our patriarchs and our matriarchs, by our biblical heroes, maybe by the Maccabees. However, Am Yisrael Chai is not found in the Bible. It's not found in the Talmud. It's not thousands of years old. It's not fully clear when Am Yisrael Chai became our mantra, became our slogan, became the Jewish people's anthem. The earliest record we have of Am Yisrael Chai dates back to less than 100 years. Amazingly, from the liberation of Bergen-Belsen concentration camp, 5 days after the liberation, on April 20th, 1945, there is a recording. And on that recording, you can hear Holocaust survivors singing Hatikva. It is so haunting and powerful. It is so moving to hear the Holocaust survivors singing Hatikva, Od lo avda tikvatenu, we have not lost hope. After they conclude the singing, there's a brief pause, a brief silence on the recording, and then you can hear a single voice cry out, Am Yisrael Chai, the Jewish people live. Am Yisrael Chai, the Jewish people live. And that was the voice of a rabbi, of a British Army chaplain, Leslie Hardman. 2 decades later, when Jews worldwide began to protest for Soviet Jewry, Am Yisrael Chai became the cry, the anthem, the slogan, and the version of the song was composed that we sing today. The Baal Shem Tov, the founder of the Hasidic movement, taught that journey of grief can end with song. The journey of grief can end with song. Jewish music is first found in the Torah itself, as the Israelites sang at Shirat Hayam, the Song of the Sea, after their miraculous escape from Egypt across the Split Sea. In response to adversity and attack, we've always responded with music. Israel's singers and musicians haven't just been volunteering to raise the spirit of the community. They've also been writing Israel's voice and heart, releasing hundreds of new songs in all genres following October 7th, expressing the country's pain, grief, hopes, strength, and resilience. A new and expanded version of the traditional Am Yisrael Chai has become the anthem of Israel since October 7th and has even won Song of the Year. Like Yerushalayim Shel Zahav, like Lu Yehi, like Al Kol Eila and others, they were songs that spoke to Israel's heart in the moment and rallied our people. and so too Eyal Golan's version, Am Yisrael Chai, which was released just weeks after October 7th, has done that for us and for our people. When our Israel mission volunteered this summer at a food pantry in Jaffa, that song, Am Yisrael Chai, is the song that we work to. And it's the song that we danced to when we were in Machane Yehuda in Jerusalem at the Central Market and the discotheque by night. We sang his additional verses. You can find the lyrics on the additional readings pamphlet that are in your hands. And I want to just read a couple verses to you. Quote, "The sun will soon shine. We will know better days, because the eternal people never fear. Even when it's hard to see, we are all together. No one here is alone. Am Yisrael Chai. The Jewish people live. We will not forget to be united. Am Yisrael Chai. We haven't lost our faith. Our spirits will not fall. The hope of 2,000 years. Am Yisrael Chai." With references to Hatikva, Golan writes a new version of Am Yisrael Chai, which speaks to the Jewish world at this moment, because the Jewish people are resilient, and we are survivors. In the mid-20th century, Jewish historian and scholar Dr. Simon Ravidovitz penned his most famous book, Israel, the Ever-Dying People. He wrote, quote, "The world makes many images of Israel, but the Jewish people makes only one, that of a being constantly on the verge of ceasing to be. We are, in his words, the ever-dying people." But Rabbi Ed Feinstein, my teacher, counters this claim, saying an ever-dying people we may be, but we are also an ever-renewing people. This isn't the first time in our experience that history has called upon us to reflect, to reimagine, to reinvent, and to renew Jewish life. We've actually had a remarkable talent for this. We are not just inventors, but we're also reinventors. For thousands of years, the Jewish people have been reinventing ourselves, usually as a survival response to attack from the outside, but sometimes from the inside as well. Just one example of reinvention in response to crisis during Jewish history is when the Beit HaMikdash, the Holy Temple in Jerusalem, was destroyed by the Romans in the year 70. 2,000 years ago, Judaism could have disappeared if not for reinvention. The rabbis acted swiftly, establishing the great academies in Yavne where soon the Mishnah and the Talmud would emerge. And in place of centralized worship only in Jerusalem at the temple, local synagogues became our holy places for prayer. We no longer sacrifice goats, we offer up our words. We sing together, for the journey through grief ends with song. Psychologists identify this Jewish muscle for reinvention as post-traumatic growth, that out of trauma can come transformation. This psychology teaches that following adversity, one can often see positive growth afterwards. People develop new understandings of themselves, understand better the world that they live in, how we relate to other people, and envision what kind of future we can have, having a better understanding of how to live. I want to make a note. There is still significant ongoing trauma. The war is still raging on multiple fronts, depending on how you count it, 7 fronts. Gaza, Lebanon, West Bank, Syria, Yemen, Iran, online, college campuses. That's 8. And I think there's more. The Mossad hasn't told me exactly how many. There are also 101 hostages that are still being held in captivity in Gaza. Thousands upon thousands of Israelis from both the north and the south are still displaced with no timetable of their return home. And yet, we have already seen incredible growth in response to grief, in response to loss, to crisis. For out of trauma can come transformation and reinvention. And isn't that the message of this day on Yom Kippur? That we have the power to reinvent ourselves, that we can grow, that we can transform, that we can recreate ourselves, we can recenter, we can repent, we can do tshuva, that we can realign our priorities. Over and over, we are told we are reinventors, and that we can begin again. So, in response to this trauma, how do we move forward? How are we changed? And can we change for the better? This is our moment to reinvent, to reinvigorate our connection to Israel and the Jewish people, Am Yisrael Chai. This is a moment to reprioritize our values. This is a moment to deepen our relationships with each other, a moment to strengthen our faith, a moment to find new personal strengths. And yes, it's crucial. It's a moment to have a greater appreciation of life. And so I'd like to share two examples that I think bring this to heart, that we are reinventors. Idit Ohel, she is the mother of Alon, who is one of the 101 hostages still being held in captivity in Gaza. Alon is now 23 years old. On October 6th, the night before, Alon was home. He was with his family, and he was playing his beloved piano. He is a gifted musician and pianist. He was playing what he called a song without a name. It was beautiful, the notes, the melody. And at the end of the night, Alon left the piano open, and he went down south to the Nova Music Festival. He arrived there Saturday morning at 5:30 a.m., 1 hour before the attack. As a terrorist attack, Alon ran for his life, hiding in a bomb shelter on the road. He was taken hostage by Hamas, along with several others, including Hirsch Goldberg Poland, of blessed memory. They know it was Alon because he was being dragged by his signature long blonde hair. His mother, Idit, said at that moment she had two options. She could get into bed and never get up, or she could reinvent herself, and she could fight. Since that day, October 7th, Idit has gone as close as she can to the Gaza border and blasted music in the hopes that Alon could hear it. She has placed a piano painted yellow in honor of Alon and the others taken in Hostage Square in Tel Aviv. I've seen it on my visit. I'm sure many others who have been to Israel have also seen it. And there are now yellow pianos all over the world, open always, so that anyone can sit down and play music. For the journey through grief ends with song. And at home, their piano is still open, waiting for Alon to come home to play that song without a name, that beautiful, haunting melody. Let it be. The second example is that from Ariel Zohar. Ariel was 12 years old on October 7th. Ariel lives in kibbutz near Oz on the border with Gaza. Ariel is the only surviving member of his immediate family. Ariel decided on October 7th, that Saturday morning at 6 a.m., to go for a run, to take a jog. And that run saved his life. His mother, his father, his two sisters were murdered by Hamas terrorists that morning. Ariel didn't go home. Ariel now lives with his grandparents. And Ariel's bar mitzvah was just 3 weeks, scheduled 3 weeks after October 7th. Ariel had one request. He wanted one thing. He asked the volunteers who came to meet with him if he could find and rescue his father's tefillin. You see, as Ariel's bar mitzvah was coming up in just a few weeks, he was gifted a brand new pair of tefillin, but he wanted his own. He wanted his family's tefillin. He wanted his father's tefillin. His father's tefillin were very special. They had been given to his father by his grandfather, who survived the Holocaust and is the only sole surviving member of his own family. 10 days after the attack, on October 17th, Niroz was still under regular rocket fire from Gaza. It was a closed military zone. But Volunteer was given 4 minutes, only 4 minutes, to search the family home and to see if he could find and recover that tefillin to give to Ariel for his bar mitzvah. So the Volunteer entered the house and for 3 minutes looked around from here and there. There was so much wreckage in that house. Couldn't find the tefillin. And then finally, in the last seconds before he had to leave, he saw a burnt-out bag. The tefillin bag was burnt beyond recognition, but he reached in, and the tefillin were there. They were intact. They had not been touched. Somehow, these family tefillin had survived. He brought them to Ariel and his 90-year-old Holocaust-surviving grandfather. Ariel and his grandfather were overcome with emotion to receive these tefillin. Ariel's grandfather said, quote, "When I was 14 years old, my parents were murdered. I survived, and today I have a grandson. And what happened to me at age 14, they have done to you at age 12. But you will survive, and God willing, you will have your own grandchildren. And, Am Yisrael Chai, we Jews live, and we Jews survive." In a moment, we will recite our Yizkor prayers. We will elevate our loved ones' memories through song, through reflection, and through prayer. Like Ariel's father's tefillin, we pray that those that we love and have lost, who've left us either precious gifts, but more importantly, have left us special memories, that they can wrap us, they can hold us tight, even though they are no longer physically with us. And when we say Yizkor, we will wrap ourselves like those tefillin in their memory, knowing that their lives, their values, their lessons, and their love still remain and still guide us. May their spirit give us the strength to move forward, to reinvent, to aspire to live by the highest values, the values they taught us and the values that we know that will help us reinvent and move forward. Am Yisrael Chai, the Jewish people live, the Jewish people endure. We are survivors. Gamar Chatima Tova, may we all be sealed in the book of life for health and for peace. And may this fast be meaningful, more meaningful than ever. And may our holiday end with a Tekiah Gedolah, the loudest Tekiah Gedolah we've ever heard, so that it can bring them all home. Gamar Chatima Tova. Bring them home now. Am Yisrael Chai.